So here I am with my friend Maria, who I love so much. I'm so glad you're here with me, Maria.
I am
And
so happy to be here.
ah, and we've been so fortunate to be close and in sisterhood and in mastermind for many years. So magical that we got to do that together.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, so I knew that I wanted to bring you back for this conversation because I feel like there's so many ways I know you could add to this conversation about
hmm
conscious relationship with everything and then conscious relationships too with other humans and such, and also how much that has to do with our relationship with our self, right? So yeah, so thank you for being up for the adventure.
Absolutely. And we've gone through so many things, I think, over the years, our masterminds together, just learning from each other and learning about our own personal relationships.
Mm.
And we always had each other to speak about it. And all of us as coaches, through these masterminds, we were really able to improve upon ourselves as well as, helping others do the same thing.
Isn't that so true? Those mastermind groups, which I know you run mastermind groups now, right?
Yes.
And and that we've seen, speaking of the magic of conscious relationship, right? Like the magic that happens when you come together with other people and get the right support, right?
Yeah.
Because and that's really so much of what you offer and why your work with people I see makes such a difference because you are aware of the importance of the right support. Would you say would you agree with that? Like the right support in having like you as a practitioner in someone's life? Like, cause I know you help people, for instance, really change their relationship with food, right? And their bodies
Mhm.
and really make big changes in weight loss and like lasting changes too. Healthy um, choices and ways that we can use for a lifetime, right? And that is something that so many people struggle with and try everything, right? So I'm just, that alone, I am so in awe how much you impact people with the way that you go about just that, right? And like I just wanted to mention before I turn over to you more that I know part of the reason you're so powerful with people though because I've gotten to be involved in some of your teachings and trainings and when you've
Mhm.
given talks and I understand fully that you aren't just talking to them about the physical, right? That you
Mhm.
have even you have like your triangle of
Yes.
approach that you're so aware and sharing that it's a mental, physical, spiritual game, and that the more that we embrace that for everything, including our health and fitness and weight and relationship with food, it's what's going to make the change. So yeah, so I'm just so excited to hear some of what might come through, and yeah, I mean, what's some of things that come to your mind as we start to even go there with how you get to be involved with people and making those changes and such.
Absolutely. I think you really said it, and it's even just the title of what you're teaching here is the magic of conscious relationships. And I think that relationship starts with yourself. And what I noticed over the years being a transformational nutrition coach is most often, and this goes for myself too, and this is why I do what I do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's because we come in because we're trying to feed something. We're trying to feed
Mm.
a hunger. And when we talk about nutrition, we often try to feed an emotion or something that is unconscious with food very often. And food
Mm.
isn't the only thing. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's drinking, sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's habits. And food is something that many of us could use. That's something that I used, and a lot of times what I see happen. So we have to realize that we're looking to find out what it is we're really hungry for. So, of
Mm.
course, changing the way you eat is going to give you that clarity. So, as I begin to make that transformation, we're going to focus a little bit on the consciousness of the relationship of how you're feeding yourself physically, whether
Mm.
that's feeding yourself food or feeding yourself some kind of movement. And then as your mind starts to clear a little bit, we can jump into what is that true spiritual hunger
Mm.
that you're looking for. And then we can denote what's the difference. Am I looking for spiritual hunger right now, or am I actually physically hungry? and then we can go down that path. And that's how you can first build that relationship with yourself, because before you can have a relationship with anybody else, whether it's another partner or a friend or your children, whatever it might be, you really need to hone in and solidify that relationship with yourself.
Mm. Wow. Oh my gosh. And I think you just really, and you're speaking to me so much too with this talk of how we're looking to food and other means to feed ourselves on some other level. Yeah, because I feel like I'm still learning to use food as actual physical nutrition instead of right as like comfort or energy management, right, or a distraction, right, or just yeah, looking to feed and fill something deeper
Mhm.
that isn't going to be filled with food. Although I think that's so interesting that to help people even be ready to look at that mentally and spiritually, that the physical changes can help, right? To start to actually
Mhm.
nourish ourselves better gets us in the mental capacity to even consider such things. So that seems an important distinction versus maybe we think we should go after it mentally first and then start to make the physical changes. So that's like a fresh awareness for me.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's a lot of meeting people where they are. You know,
Uh,
sometimes people come in and they know, like, hey, I know that, I've been using food as a way to not deal with this issue. I've been using wine as a way to not deal with this issue.
yeah.
And I want to make that change. I want to know more about me. Help me do that. So that's
Mm.
another way to feed yourself. And I love that concept is feeding yourself isn't just food. We have to feed our whole self.
Yes, right. And that feels like such an important conversation that this feeding ourselves comes in so many ways, and that when
Mhm.
we open up to that, we're hungry. This hunger. I love how you express it like that. We've
Yeah.
got this hunger that we're looking to fill or feed, and then to really look more authentically and lovingly at how we can do that in healthy ways, right? And and then how much it can help to have the right support, right? Because
Yeah.
we're often
Absolutely.
moving through like a lot of old patterns and belief systems and habits, and it's like an addiction too, right? We're talking about, for a lot of us, our use of food is another form of an addiction, right? Just a way that we're doing all these things, avoiding the hard feelings, using a substance or a something
Hmm.
to distract us, or even to bring us into the moment in a way that may or may not be helpful, right? So, yeah, that's powerful because it's one of those substances that we can't just give up, right? We're not going
Absolutely.
to just
Right,
stop
exactly. We can't stop
eating.
eating, right? We need that. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's a belief system. So that old belief that we have keeps showing up because we've ingrained that. It's kind of like a rut in our brain, and we know that we know a way to deal with that belief system. And that's something that we work with down the line as well. And something that I've personally spent a lot of time as well. So if we kind of think of that belief that's really strong, and think of it's kind of like the rut in the road, right? We put the tire tracks in, so we know we can take that path. Whether or not it's the right path, we know it's going to get us someplace where we feel comfortable. And I kind of figured out what a belief system is. And oftentimes a belief system starts from when an event happens, right? Something
Mm,
happens to you, it's an event. And then when that event happens, we immediately attach an emotion to it. And with that event and that emotion, and that's our emotion personally, because everybody else can see the event a different way. There's not one way to see that event. We also attach our own personal explanation to it. So now
mm,
every time we have a singular belief system, as maybe somebody was, in a relationship, and or as a child they grew up, and they their parents often left them places, And so now they have a belief system that they are going to be left behind. So their
Mm,
explanation is every time somebody walks away, they feel that, oh my goodness, I'm going to be abandoned, or I'm not going to feel good. So we have trouble having a relationship. So oftentimes we would feed ourselves through another means, whether it's food or anything else, to kind of cover up that belief system, because for the moment, that makes us feel good.
mm,
And there is a way to change that belief system as well. And that's where we kind of dive deep into the story of what that belief has become to you, and rewrite it a little bit, and maybe change that explanation. And, maybe, your parents weren't leaving you as a child. Let's go back to the original event. Maybe they were leaving because they were working 2 or 3 jobs to take care of you. It
mm,
wasn't because they were leaving you abandoned. So now you can look back as your adult self and rewrite that belief system. So when somebody leaves, it doesn't mean that they're abandoning me. There may be something else going on in their life, and they
mm,
are coming back, and they're coming back with something better, because they're going out to do something that is going to be helpful to me and them.
Yeah, so really rewiring your perception of
Yeah.
it so that that can shift your response in life. And I'm thinking about, like, I feel like there are so many belief systems that are hard in the human consciousness about the body and what's possible, and even with things like weight and age. And will you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you also, I mean, I know you've done so much training and so much study, and you're so current on the latest research and what we really now know is
Mhm.
possible with the human body. And you've worked with so many people and seen huge changes, right, of people of all ages. So will you share a little bit about how you handle that, those, hard belief systems that so many of us have about these things, like how, how it can be to lose weight and what's possible at certain ages, and what's for sure going to happen for the human body at certain, times in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. And I could kind of share even from my own story.
Please. Yeah. Yeah.
When I was kind of going through my own health, transformation, I felt, I came to a place where I was feeling really unhealthy, and I was working a lot of hours, and my body just wasn't feeling good. And I finally took the time to look in the mirror, and I noticed that a lot of things had changed. And I didn't pay attention to it. So I immediately started looking for help. So I started going to doctors, and, started trying different things. And literally, what doctors were telling me was, you're just getting older.
Uh-huh.
So
So
this
it's
is
not, yeah, we're not just making it up. There are
right,
practitioners.
exactly. And you should just deal with it. And I was like, I don't
Yes.
want to deal with that. My goal in life is to just be the happiest person that I can. And if I'm not feeling energetic, or I'm not
Mm-hmm.
feeling able to do things, then that doesn't make any sense. We're here to be happy. That's what I always remind myself.
Mm,
And so I started down a road of doing all of that research and understanding what it is your body really needs. Now, there are different times that we go through different things. There's different
mm,
seasons of life, right? Even at a point of, if we're under a lot of stress, a lot of times we can just kind of burn out our adrenals.
mm,
And what all that means is we just have a lot of, like, hormone imbalance. So
mm,
our body becomes very imbalanced. So there's a way to kind of bring that back down,
mm,
back to that homeostasis. But if we don't, we're going to continue that kind of decrease in how we're feeling. So now maybe
mm,
our adrenals are off a little bit, but if we don't take the time to address that, then all of a sudden our eating habits start changing, because our chemical balance is a little bit off. We're
mm,
feeling stressed. And
mm,
then that could bring on maybe, issues with our blood sugar levels. So we start
mhm,
seeing that falling off kilter, or it can
mm.
bring into hormones. So you see how it can kind of bring you down a place of falling off the ladder almost,
Yeah.
but we can climb back up that ladder
Mm,
and correct all of these imbalances. So starting with the place of, you just kind of imbalance of, maybe our body is digestion. This is a big one that we hear about these days. We hear about all of the, colitis, or, anything that's going on with the body, we're unable to digest it. So really focusing on just feeding your body good, healthy food to bring
mm.
back that place of having a healthy digestive
Yeah.
system.
Makes
Once
sense.
right. So we
Oh,
need to kind of clean that up first, and then we
mm,
can start working into correcting that adrenal imbalance, or maybe that blood sugar imbalance, pre-diabetes. That's something that I dealt with. The doctor said if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to work into a place of becoming diabetic. And that is all about our habits. And it was really an important thing to do was change our habits, not only in the way we eat, which is super important, but
mm,
also in the way we think and the way
mm,
we take care of ourselves spiritually.
yeah, and how we manage stress,
Mhm.
obviously, right? Because
Yeah,
that's such a part of why we end up down the hole. And yeah, and it does seem like this last year with the pandemic and such, more people, or there's a lot of people complaining that they're feeling, worse than ever and noticing they've gained the extra weight and how much right that goes with having a lot of people being under more stress. So it is a natural possibility, right, that we could just notice, wow, I suddenly have all this excess weight as part of my responding to the stress of the last year. But that's where I feel like it's so helpful if we can bring in that hope, right, and possibility. And I imagine a lot of it begins with just forgiving ourselves for the how we have been using substances, right, or feeding ourselves otherwise, and in
absolutely.
that momentum. Yeah, but and then just having the right support, I would imagine that it's because when we're really just trying to take it on solo and really make such big changes without the right support, right, that just makes it easier to fall off the wagon, I would
Yeah,
imagine, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Support is paramount. It
yeah.
really is. And you also mentioned forgiveness and
Mm.
forgiveness of ourselves. And that's really an important thing, especially now. I mean, that's something that we're always dealing with in any time. But I think now more than ever, you're right.
Yeah, and also because I think you're someone who teaches a lot about how we now know the stress response, like you were starting to, indicate, is part of what can lead us to gaining or carrying weight, right? Because it's part of how the body is just dealing with that fight or flight response, and so it really is so important to help ourselves get out of that stress response. So, like, if we're mad at ourselves for having gained the weight, that's putting us in a stress response, right? Which is actually
Mhm.
gonna make us more likely to hold on to that weight, right? And not allow the shifts and changes. Yeah, it's a painful topic, I know, right? For so many, so much shame and even generations of shame, right? Sometimes if you have like you were talking about when you have a story, kind of if
Mhm.
you have this life
Yes,
story, and for some people if it's something they've struggled with for, you know, 20, 40, years or longer, like it's such a deep topic that literally weighs people down so much, right? Just because of the feelings about self and the shame and the guilt and the right. And then that is
yeah.
probably what makes it the hardest to
Mhm.
shift
Yeah,
when we keep thinking we've like, what's wrong with me? And,
totally.
I'm failing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just love what you're
When you say
bringing.
those words, what I did for myself to kind of to shift those, because they're going to come up. We're human, and we think certain things. Is I always what as soon as you say those words, or as soon as I start to feel that shame or that guilt, I think of a rainbow. And what I always remember is, in order to see a rainbow, it needs to rain.
Um,
So we really need to kind of clear those things out. So what we have to realize first is whatever it is, that thought we're feeling, that shame or that guilt, or whatever it is just realize that it isn't true, and allow yourself to just kind of sit with it and say, is this really true? Can I really see this in a different perspective? Why am I thinking this way? Sometimes people say, I'm never going to lose this weight. Is that
right.
really true?
Yeah, right.
No, that's not
Yeah.
really true. You absolutely can do that. So we kind of begin with that, and then even though it's not true, allow yourself to feel it. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to feel in that uncertain way, that shame or that guilt,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
just really feel what it feels like,
Uh,
and then go with that for a moment, and then you just want
mm,
to investigate what that means.
mm,
Why do I think I'm never going to lose this weight? Kind of dive into that question. What is it? You know what? Maybe it is my eating habits. I don't think I'm going to lose this weight because I don't have support. I don't have anybody who, when I go home, they're going to
Mm.
help me, stay on track that I need to. I don't have somebody who I can exercise with. I'd really love to have that kind of support. I don't know how to create a meal plan. I don't even know what kind of food I need. So once we can investigate that, we can reach out for the
Mm.
assistance that we need.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's in ourselves.
Mm.
Sometimes it's an outside support system.
Yes.
And then once you do that, you can kind of let go of
Ah,
that story, that shame, or that guilt, and just kind of lead down that road of loving yourself and reaching out for the
yeah.
support that you need.
Yeah. And it seems practical too that when you know that you are actually taking steps to be different, or, like that's going to help you shift and lift out of it, right? To see that you are, there's reason to believe things would be different than they have in the past, right? Because you see yourself doing things differently, much less thinking things differently. Yeah, so that's where I know you encourage a lot of things like journaling and meditation and sorts things like that is part of your work with people, right? And that I imagine is why.
And you know how it works because I know you do the same thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what we have to see with that is we've seen that as professionals over and over, even looking at other mentors that we have, they're sharing the same information. So doing these simple things like journaling and meditation and yoga and going outside and walking in the sand or walking in the grass, these are things that will transform you and allow you to just kind of open up to that more beautiful self of yours.
Mm. That's so beautifully said. Well, gosh, I don't want to miss the chance to touch on kind of taking another direction because as much as these are all such your areas of expertise, I feel like it's kind of fun to bring up that you also seem to be in a very happy union with your husband, right? And that you two, each of you seem to be so thriving and on your like excited about your personal growth and work in the world, but you seem to have this happy partnership. And I know you went through a transformation together, right?
Mhm.
That you both, as you made those health changes years ago and dropped a bunch of weight, Vance too, right? Went
Yeah.
through those changes. So I don't know. I just love to hear a little bit more from you about what you're currently discovering is helpful and true and possible in partnerships, where you're really allowing that personal growth and thriving, but also making sure you feel really connected. And I don't know, it just seems like you all have something good going on. So
Thank you
anything,
for noticing. Yes.
anything coming through lately that you'd want to share on your awareness?
Yeah, absolutely. So this month, we are celebrating our 24 years of
Mm,
marriage. So I don't know how, because
mm.
I think I'm only 29, but but yeah, so there is something that goes along with that. And that's very true. And a relationship is something that you always work on, of course.
Mm,
And first and foremost, you need to have that relationship with yourself. And I think that is super important when you're in a relationship, whether it's 4 days or 24 years. It's really having your own well-being, your own purpose is very important. And then in that relationships, being able to support each other in that
mm,
relationship. And then you can build upon doing things together, thinking about the values that you have and what are your values, what is your partner's values, and just kind
mm,
of bringing them together and maybe having that conversation, and
mm,
also having boundaries. There's things that,
mm,
hey, maybe there's things that you love to do and you want to continue doing that, or things that I love to do that are super important to me, and sharing that so you have those boundaries of what goes on in your life. So it's about building it together, but also having that self as well. And then
mm,
knowing, one of the things that I find often is very triggering in some relationships is belief systems, and really being able,
mm,
going back to that, being able to have that conversation and realize that, if there's something happening in your relationship, for me, like if I feel like a little bit off about something and I'm like, what's going on? I kind of sit back and say, well, what do I believe about this particular situation? And is it really true? And I kind of go
mm,
through that rain idea that I shared with you
mm.
earlier, and focus a little bit on that. But it's conversation,
Mm,
really talking and be able to talk about what you're feeling, what's going on in your life is very important. Making time for each other,
mm-hmm.
especially after, having a relationship for this long, you still have to make time for each other. Keep that
Yeah.
excitement going.
Mm-hmm.
Give
Mm-hmm.
yourself, those special date nights is very important. And then you just kind of keep the growth from there and know in a relationship what your expectations are. So even if you're getting into a new relationship,
Mm,
what are your expectations
mm,
in a relationship? And make that clear to the other
mm,
person. And then in the same way, let that other person do that for you.
mm,
Because sometimes, there's different ways we feel that our needs are being met, and your partner may have different ways that they feel their needs are to be met. So understand what it means for you to have your needs met and what it means for them to have your needs met, and then
mm,
communicate that. And then, some people feel like, hey, if I get a gift from you, I know you care about me.
mm,
Somebody else might feel like, when you just stop and listen to me and hear me speak out, I know you care about me.
mm.
So really understanding what it is for you that constitutes that healthy relationship.
Yeah, and being willing to ask for it
Yeah.
seems very evolved, right? instead
Yes.
of
Right.
instead of just hoping and wishing and yeah. So
Yeah,
wow,
that's
that
true.
is
Because
so.
we're not typically mind readers, right? Sometimes we don't know what the other person wants, and I find too, especially me as a woman, just with I sometimes don't want to express everything, but
Mm,
it's
mm,
important to express all of that. Whether it comes from a need that you have met or a need that you want met.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and being willing to be vulnerable. Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet. And it seems like you two make it a point to enjoy life together still, as much as you're both busy and thriving with your work lives, growing so much that I see your posts of making it a point to get out and do a sunset walk or take a
Mhm.
little weekend retreat here. And I imagine that's part of the magic, making sure you're still having
That is
fun and
magic.
enjoying life together.
Absolutely, it is. It's enjoying life together. You said it. It's really making that time again, because we are here, whether you're with a partner or you're not with a partner. It's just you. You just need to enjoy that life, and when you can find somebody to enjoy that with, it just explodes that experience even more. Because now you get to see how they feel about that particular enjoyment. So even if you're doing something amazing, watching a sunset, you may experience it in two different ways, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
great way to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Right. To keep remembering you're two different people and
Yeah,
then just kind of enjoying what experiences you can share, right? Meeting
absolutely.
in the middle. Oh, well, and I do love that your bottom line is about wanting us all to be happy, right? And how much that does play into our being healthy. Like I love as you were sharing about your physical transformation from years ago that it was really because you knew you wanted to be happy,
Hmm.
that's why you wanted to make those physical changes, right? And so I love, yeah, that you help us remember that that's all the goal, but how all these things are a part of it, right? Like feeling well is part of
Hmm.
being happy, right? It's like a
Absolutely.
helpful piece. It's
I
hard to
find
avoid when we don't feel good.
when you focus on health, the byproduct of focusing on your health is you will feel better, you will feel happier, you will
Wow.
lose weight.
Yeah.
So rather than, sometimes people come to me and say, "Hey, Maria, I want to lose weight so I can get healthy." But the
Mm.
real secret is if you get healthy, you will get those other things.
Yes. And then the weight often drops off a lot easier than you might think when
Absolutely.
you're making it about getting healthy and getting enough nourishment and, yeah, really looking at what you're hungry for.
Right.
So, oh my
Exactly. You
gosh.
said it.
Well, you said it. I'm just summarizing
That's the
what
truth.
I've learned
Yes,
with
no
you.
doubt.
So, oh, thank you so much, Maria. I knew this would be wonderful. And yeah, I really just would love to keep helping share your leading edge ways with helping people and helping us all with these realms. Again, I know like that the food and nutrition is some of what you're in with a lot of us, but that you are obviously teaching us about all of these aspects. So thank
Yeah.
you so much. I feel like this is going to be a helpful one for a lot of people.
Yes.
Is there anything else though that you'd like to say in the name of conscious relationships or relationship before we would call that to a close ish?
Yeah, just, keep focusing on what you mentioned in the beginning. I like to focus on that triad, thinking of your life as to finding that balance as maybe a three-legged table. Focus on what you need physically, but also make sure you focus on what you need mentally for yourself and what you need spiritually for yourself. And
Mm,
then you'll just feel really balanced. You'll feel really steady, and you'll be able to take on this beautiful world and enjoy it in any way you desire.
mm. Yeah, it seems so practical and grounded as you say it and bring it forward. So thank you for that. And then I know that you have lots of things to offer people, including that you work with people one on one, and you have group programs and probably things on your website. Will you tell us about how people can find and follow you more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, right now, I just created a new recipe book that's
Ooh.
totally free.
Oh
So
my gosh, how
you can
exciting!
start feeding yourself good food. And
Yes.
it's right on my website. It's just
Okay.
my name, mariamizzi.com. And you just, right on that front page, it says grab my free recipe book. And
Oh,
these are literally the recipes that I used to heal myself and that I still use with clients today to help them start to feel better and bring that clarity and allow them to rise up to be healthier and live their happiest life.
wow, that is exciting! Congratulations! I can't wait to see that. I bet it's
Yeah,
beautiful. So.
it's a great recipe. And then from there, we always need that support. Of
Hmm.
course, I have my coaching programs as well as my one-to-one programs, and you can check them out there.
Mm, gosh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, for continuing to just do all that learning you've been doing, so that you continue to be this fresh source of the latest understandings, and yeah, that you've put so much together to actually help people. So I appreciate your willingness.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. I had a
Oh,
great time.
thank you so much.
Always
And
fun to
I'll
connect
invite you back. I'll be
today.
back
Okay,
inviting you back for more.
perfect. I look forward to it.
Okay, so good to have you here.
Bye.
All right, thanks you all for being here too. We'll see you soon. Namaste.